Here, I'll make us bigger.
Make us bigger. Ooh, that was fun. Buenos dias. Here we are in Bucerias, Mexico, and we're coming to you live. This is now a Bridge to a Better World, and actually, we're not actually getting started yet because Andi's still doing her preparations. Which, right? No.
No, you said you were going to play your flute. Is what you said you would do now.
Oh, I'm gonna play my flute while preparations are being made. Yes.
What preparations do I have to do? We're on.
Oh.
You said you were going to play your flute, dear.
Oh. Yeah.
It makes up for the tin toys because we don't have them.
Okay, that's what
That's what you were doing.
Okay. This is the tin toys. Like, I didn't want to present this flute as like, now here's the flute of Teresa Mitchell. I'm just noodling to kill time is where I want to start this. So here's
You
some
can
nice
play
noodling.
flutes.
Is that enough noodling?
Sure.
Okay, we're all noodling.
However you want, dear.
All right. This is now a Bridge to a Better World, and we have some things to say. I think I should just start saying them. Although the first thing I want to say is actually a repeat of Democracy Now!, which is a little much because y'all being who you are, you already watched Democracy Now! But I just can't believe it. So from Democracy Now! On Capitol Hill, Amy Goodman said this morning, Senate Republicans used the threat of a filibuster Thursday to block a bill to combat neo-Nazi and white supremacist violence. So they had a bill. Who would argue with this, right? Well, evidently Republicans would. 47 Republicans voted against ending debate on the Domestic Terrorism Prevention Act, which would create domestic terrorism offices within the FBI and the Departments of Justice and Homeland Security. This comes less than 2 weeks after a white supremacist gunman killed 10 black people at a grocery store in a predominantly African-American neighborhood of Buffalo, New York. They won't even talk about it. Threat of a filibuster. Don't you dare talk about ending
white supremacy,
white supremacist terrorism.
Because, well, hop, skip, and a jump from critical race theory, right? And that's a hop, skip, and a jump to actually looking at the myth, the very, very violent covering of our history that is the American origin myth, right? Don't look behind the curtain. Don't say those words. It is tantamount to thought crime in the US to actually mention white supremacy because it is the foundation on which the country is built.
which is why the right-wing commentators right now are doing backflips to say that, oh, that was just another crazy guy. Don't take our guns. Don't take our guns. Don't take our guns.
And you're talking specifically about the shooter in Buffalo
and
the shooter in Uvalde, not necessarily not white supremacist, but a definite sign of a very, very broken society.
Yeah, that's exactly what I want to talk about. So I'm inclined to take a broader view of the cultural conditions that are in place in the USA that have given root to the now well-established phenomenon of random target mass shootings. Rufus T. Numbnut, who has lived a life of alienation and doesn't know how to have ordinary compassion, suffers some annoyance, probably no greater than ordinary puberty and poverty, and decides he wants to go out in a blaze of glory, so he buys or steals military-grade bang-bang sticks and expresses his final tantrum by inducing grievous puncture wounds in innocent people. It's not a coincidence that this phenomenon is usually also an expression of racial violence, since the first tiers of wealth in what became the United States were built on racial violence. The shooter didn't seem to be targeting for race. His easy action was in the context of and all about the economically enforced, police-enforced, gun-enforced system of U.S. race violence. The race violence system is still quite profitable, and neither our leaders nor the hegemonic racial bloc are ready to relinquish it, much less pay reparations. This is a roundabout way of saying that it's still a system that is set up to benefit the white rich. The Second Amendment was put into place to enforce slave labor via militias, and its more general usage of intimidating everyone who isn't a wealthy white male is still very much in place. There are those who pretend that the Second Amendment is there to trim back government from becoming totalitarianism, but if that were true, if that were the case, the 400 million firearms on American soil would long ago have been used to prevent the near-record police state we now live in. We hold the record for incarcerated persons, and those guns have almost never been raised to liberate us from that sort of totalitarianism. The only case I can think of was the Black Liberation Army, and Assad is still free, haha. In fact, a member of the Supreme Court, Clarence Thomas, recently commented to the fact that it doesn't matter whether the person appealing the conviction is guilty or not. The need of the state for finality trumps the consideration of innocence. And if that's not totalitarianism, what is? Have our guns ever been raised against polluting corporations, against grinding poverty, or against illegal and immoral invasions of other countries? Have they roared to liberate the lands of the indigenous, smashed the locks of our crammed prisons, or thundered for reparations for the descendants of the enslaved? Do they defend the homeless or liberate the children held in shackles on our borders? Hell no. They serve as totems of domination, and that's why aggrieved and frustrated husbands still use them to kill their families and then themselves. And that's why right now some other Randy Reichsput is scripting out a semi-literate screed to excuse his large magazine Brad attack on women or BIPOC or some random kids. And since this society is based on lies, Republican politicians are still running ads in which they literally parade around with rifles without a scintilla of embarrassment, knowing that they can get votes from men who have no idea why they can't get ahead in life, can't catch up their mortgage and credit payments, men who feel that the mighty thunder stick will somehow replace or revitalize their pitiful, humiliated incel baby makers. There's no getting around that context. This is a nation with more guns than people. And I don't kid myself that my fear and disgust of gun culture will keep the guns of the fascists away from my household. I know that Ani and I have long been on the sort of list that our fascist police keep and share with their swastika comrades in arms. But I won't pretend that the Second Amendment is here to guarantee someone like me my rights, any rights. It's just an excuse for white male power. And in fact, Second Amendment rights have been stripped away from me merely for being a loudmouth leftist who has indicated she would stand up for what is left of democracy. So it's exactly the opposite, really. They say it's for democracy. Hold up that gun and say, I'll stand for democracy, and they'll come around and take it away. But the corporations and their liberals and their conservatives and their police should be afraid of me and Ani. And that's because we wield something far more dangerous to this police state, namely a memory of history, an accurate social analysis, and a sense of outrage that could start a conflagration any moment among the desperate citizens of this Dickensian dungeon. In order to keep us from rising up in a democratic way, we have hundreds of police forces whose power has grown from the mere slave-catching days of their origins. And the training of those cops is exactly what you see acting out on the streets. It's not a fluke or an accident, for example, if you see cops letting someone they don't like bleed to death on the street without access to the emergency techs who are begging to help. They're trained that way. Here's an excerpt from Reuters about the nation's top cop trainer. Quote, on social media, Richard Whitehead, is a warrior for the American right. He has praised extremist groups. He has called for public executions of government officials he sees as disloyal to former President Donald Trump. In a post in 2020, he urged law enforcement officers to disobey COVID-19 public health orders from tyrannical governors, adding, "We are on the brink of civil war." Whitehead also has a day job. He trains police officers around the United States. The Idaho-based law enforcement consultant has taught at least 560 police officers and other police safety workers in 85 sessions in 12 states over the past 4 years, according to a Reuters analysis of public records from the departments that hired him. A Washington State Training Commission in 2015 temporarily banned Whitehead from advertising courses on its website because of instructional materials that referred to a turban-wearing police officer as a towel head and contained cartoons of women in bikinis, according to emails from the commission to Whitehead that were reviewed by Reuters. Other marketing literature touted Whitehead's deception detection technique that, among other things, teaches officers not to trust sexual assault claimants if they use the word "we" in referring to themselves and their assailant. The commission was responding to a student complaint citing offensive slurs and blatant misogyny. Whitehead said in an interview that the commission had given too much credence to one student's opinion and caused him to lose business. Since then, he said he has expanded the section of his course that caused that controversy, adding more pot-stirring material, he says, including a slide that ridicules transgender people. Quote, "Suspect is a gender fluid assigned male at birth wearing non-gender specific clothing, born Caucasian, but identifies as a mountain panda." Whitehead and such barbs are intended to push back against pressures on law enforcement to espouse left-wing views on gender or race, he says. So he started his training firm in 1995 during a 25-year career in the Sheriff's Department of Travis County, Texas, moved to Idaho, and in 2020 he ran for sheriff of Kootenai County. During his campaign, he handed out cards identifying himself as an oath keeper. He ran on a constitutional sheriff platform, he said in an interview, and he lost in the primary, placing for third of four candidates.
And the reason this guy is significant, just to back up, is because he's the head cop trainer.
He's one of the top cop trainers, and there's another one. Let me skip ahead of Whitehead and talk about this guy, Ramsey. Contacted by Reuters, Ramsey acknowledged writing an email comparing Muslims to goat effers. Ramsey was complaining about Whitehead. Whitehead said he was not aware of the complaint. It said he stood by his view that putting an LGBTQ flag on a police car would create a slippery slope that drags law enforcement officers away from their mission of fighting crime. So he's got this attitude that, acknowledging non-cis white males is going to make police weak.
Will dilute the focus.
Yeah. Grossman is another, that's who I was thinking of. He's another police trainer. In Mother Jones, he's described as marching around the stage in a theater in Lakeport, California, telling his audience they shouldn't go out looking for people to kill because those who need killing, like gang bangers, he says, terrorists and mass murderers, will come to them. All they need to do is to be ready. He shouts, "Are you ready? Are you prepared to kill somebody?" He asked me and the small group of armed citizens who've paid $90 or more to see him. If you cannot answer that question, you should not be carrying a gun, he says. 2 hours into his high-octane 6-hour seminar, the self-described top police trainer in the nation is just getting warmed up. It goes on to describe his silly get-up, and it says, like a preacher, he doesn't bother with notes. Grossman's trainings are fear porn, says Craig Atkinson, a filmmaker who attended one for his documentary on police militarization, Do Not Resist. So that's, you'd think with all this gung-ho rhetoric, this is me speaking for myself, the Uvalde cops would have rushed the classroom commando style and saved the day. But cops are also taught that their lives are the most precious, that they should risk nothing, hence the shoot-to-kill training when they're facing something more comfortable like a cell phone or a pocket knife. Don't risk getting hurt, they're told. You have a gun, use it. They have a saying that goes something like better 6 feet under than tried by 6, meaning a jury. So they'd rather bleed you out, and they'll hold back the emergency crew because you're not the important person. This goes back to the original formation. You use the cops in the USA. They're here to protect property and riches, not to risk their lives for non-cops. And our system of economics isn't here to ensure you have food, housing, meaningful and gainful employment, or anything like that. It's here to make sure the rich get richer, the familiar order of white men first stays in place. And for that, it's important that we all live in cringing fear of the enforcers of wealth. And this thing.
And can I butt in for a moment?
Absolutely, yeah.
There is the pervasive and persistent myth of the brave blue, the brave folks in blue that face the horrors of their work life, that have this very dangerous job, that risk their lives daily. And I just want to point out that being a cop is not in the top 10 most dangerous jobs in the US. Heading that list, depending which list you are looking at, I've seen this go both ways. But according to OSHA's data, or Occupational Safety and Health Administration, fishing and hunting workers are actually number one. Logging workers are number two. I've seen statistics from Bureau of Labor with those two particular positions switched. I'm not sure what the discrepancy is, but still, neither one of those are cops, right? That's fishing workers, hunting workers, and logging workers. Roofers, construction workers, aircraft pilots and flight engineers, refuse waste and recyclable material collectors, otherwise known as the people that remove our garbage, structural iron and steel workers, delivery and truck drivers, and I believe the National Labor Bureau listed also bus drivers in that category, underground mining machine operators, and number 10, farmers and agricultural workers. Now, I never hear about the brave garbage collectors that go off and face death daily when they go to work, and yet their job statistically is far more dangerous than being a cop. People that work, the fishing boats, far more dangerous than being a cop. You a roofer? Congratulations, you are braver facing your roofing job daily than a cop, right? I just cannot emphasize enough
Yeah, and I know
that myth of cops do such a dangerous job and therefore they really deserve all of this. I don't know what. This is a myth.
Oh yeah, they really fudged the stats too. I saw something recently saying 444 cops had died in the course of duty over the last couple of years, and it turns out 90% of those died of COVID. It makes it sound like they died in a hail of gunfire. This is not true, and I've commented before, so pardon me for mentioning it again, but I was a bus driver. I'm a retired bus driver, and I often faced weapons and dangerous people, and I didn't shoot to kill.
I think, a lot of neighborhood grocery store attendants. There's a lot of people who face off dangerous folks who are maybe, again, broken in this isolating and alienating society and acting out in various antisocial, murderous ways. Okay. A lot of people have to face folks on a regular basis and not have the training cops do or the equipment cops have. And generally speaking, we're not thinking of how to kill. We're thinking of how to be safe, how to get away, how to, get somebody in who is a professional to help with the situation. But you can talk about the professionals that help with the situation, can't you, Teresa? You're doing that right now.
Yeah, and thanks for the comments, John. Good morning, John. Well, I commented the other day that the fight back with BLM is now facing a backlash. And there's an article on Mother Jones about it. I wanted to quote part of it. They write, just as the radical edge of the 1960s sowed fear and spurred on the organization of a conservative movement, one that arose in the 1970s and attained full power in the next decade, we are again seeing the rise of a political force ruthlessly opposed to any attempt to create a different, more equal America. That is to say, 2 years on, it's clear the backlash has arrived. Conservative state legislatures have passed laws making it illegal to teach children about America's long history of black subjugation. Others have criminalized the right to protest, with some even making it legal for drivers in specific conditions to run over protesters. In New York City, a progressive stronghold and the site of 2020's fiercest marchers, they elected a former cop as its mayor who has reinstated a plainclothes unit disproportionately responsible for police shootings. After a surge of solidarity, support for Black Lives Matter has sagged as founders of the organization, not synonymous with the wider movement, have been drawn into numerous scandals involving their bookkeeping and use of donations. Progressive prosecutors, buoyed to victory by the forces driving the protests, have faced fierce reprisal and even recall elections. So, and there's more to that on the article in Mother Jones, but I just want to say that they're pushing back hard, and that's where we're at right now. Things are worse.
Well, yeah, and it seems really clear that it's, retribution, because we dared speak the truth about the murderous slant the cops have, about their militaristic training and what that does in turning all of the public into their prospective targets. There's been a lot said in independent press, in community radio, in independent journalism about the militarization of the police force that has been a very premeditated effort since the late 70s, early 80s, and the glorification of cops that go along with that. It truly does provide the backdrop for a police state. And as we know, things aren't looking good on those counts, right?
Right. And that is what I have to say on that topic. There was one other topic
Come forward
that,
into the
that I
camera.
considered bringing up, but I don't have much of the details on it. You may have heard that the transcript of a meeting in China has been released in which one province is discussing its preparations for war on Taiwan, and the discussion of the details of that one province indicate that is it intended to be. It apparently is on rails and intended to be a really, really massive effort. So this is something people should be thinking about as well.
What does this mean?
That they intend to go to war in a huge way to take Taiwan by force, basically.
And what does this mean? It's like, so we're looking at.
You mean what time frame? I don't know what time frame, but I would say within the year.
So we have the Russian war in Ukraine. We have this brewing. How does this look for the world?
Not real good.
Okay. So peace efforts, I think, and whatever we can do to, I know we only have control really over our own backyard and very little control there.
Well, I think we could call for negotiations.
But I think that we do have to really look at globalizing peace efforts. Once again, a global peace movement was active and strong in the 80s. In the 90s, it really started faltering. And then after 9/11, it seems like it's been broken. We must do what we can to put together a peace movement, a very strong peace movement of the people of this planet, saying, let's say no to annihilation. Let's say we can talk to each other. We can negotiate.
The sort of peace movement that might say, stop making war on our wages.
Well, I think it's kind of a whole ball of wax, right? I mean, I don't know that you can have global peace with late stage capitalism. I think these things might be mutually exclusive.
Sounds like something's for sale on the street.
I was going to say, at this point, there is a truck going by.
This is the nature of bucerias. People come by to sell things from tamales to ideology.
So, if you are at a stopping point,
I am.
I guess the thing I wanted to just sort of comment around the two shootings that have happened, and to know that there are probably shootings every day in between them as well that didn't grab the national headlines, to say that America is averaging, pretty much a mass shooting a day. If you look at the last couple of years of statistics, it's pretty close to it. And I believe a mass shooting is defined as as a shooting, gunplay, where more than 3 people are injured. So that said, when we have a country that's broken, what does it mean? How do we go about fixing this society that is so badly damaged that we that we have people who see no worth whatsoever in their life or in the lives of others, that they see no sacredness, that they see nothing of value around them. Um, these people so angry, so broken. Why? Right? What has caused this? There's, of course, the section of folks that are this kind of broken with radicalization, the white supremacists, the folks looking to go stomp marginalized communities and to get down with a new genocide to take over, um, to uh, to answer the call of the Great Replacement Theory as pushed by Tucker Carlson nightly. There's that. But
Glad you
there,
mentioned that. I mean, that's what's in these people's minds.
yeah. But then there's also, the people without the ideology, the people that are just broken, who don't see value in life, who don't see, value in anything. How can we start to heal? I think really a part of healing is a national reckoning with our history, is truth telling, but it's truth telling with compassion, and it's truth telling with support services, so that when people are confronted with the fact that what they've been sold their entire life thus far has been generally a pack of lies based on white supremacy and our origin myth of honest George chopping down the cherry tree because he cannot tell the lie, and how he's, this brilliant vision of democracy who became our first president, as opposed to, yeah, okay, that plus the slave holding and the other things, right? How we have to look at the picture as complex and whole. And a lot of times when you first learn that kind of truth, if you're really ideologically committed to the lies, it's gonna piss you off. It's gonna break you. It's gonna make you want to cancel, critical race theory teachings. It's gonna make you want to cancel things like Howard Zinn's History of the United States, People's History, because it threatens your identity. And so we need that truth telling. We need to crack those those myths, and we need support services for folks that are really shook by that. I don't want to coddle people. I'm not too interested in tiptoeing around white fragility or white heteronormative Christian fragility. I'm a queer pagan gal, and I don't have a lot, um, you know, at stake in that origin myth myself. That said, for folks that really have based their worth on it, they're going to need support when those illusions get shattered. And that's, I think, just sort of a human response. Let's try to bring each other through this.
I've been trying to say this thing about the Second Amendment. The Second Amendment it's white fragility, and those of us who are clinging to it, white people like me, need to abandon it. I mean, come on, Che Guevara didn't need the Second Amendment to hold a gun. All right, these are separate things. Sometimes you need a gun. The Second Amendment is about supporting white hegemony. And of course, there's more to it that's going on in the society. And part of the reason I came to Bucerias was to learn some things just by coming here and seeing people who act differently. Now, people think that Mexico is violent because there is extreme violence between the sicarios and the drug enforcers and that whole little circle. But that is not true of society generally. And when I came to Bucerias and opened my eyes this time around, I really started noticing things, not just the fact that people greet each other, but it's like the whole society is built around being much more, especially in a town like this, in being much more interactive. Like those people I was saying come by to sell stuff, you get to know them. I mean, even if you don't want to buy a tamale or some tuba every day, you get to see the people coming by, the sound of their little horn or their bell or whatever. And you look forward to it because that's part of being human. You get to know their names, they know you. You're all, I mean, it expands your humanity. What I'm saying is, like, even the economics of this place is more human than what we've gotten used to. Our separated, isolated little suburban cell-like culture in the United States. And I'm glad that I came down here. And I'm looking people in the eyes more than I ever did. I have a problem with that personally, because I've always been, that sort of alienated person. There are things to be learned from the rest of the world. I'm really glad that I came down here. Oh, by the way, I found a recording of the Republicans and the Democrats who've gotten together to work on gun violence. This is them in session right now.
Huh. All right. Do you have anything else? Shall I move on?
I've all blustered out.
So, just in closing, I have once again done pulled some tarot cards to encapsulate our journey together this week, right? What I have. So, in the Cat Tarot deck, the 10 of Swords inversed is we are in a real painful spot, right? There's no denying that we are kind of stuck. And part of the reason we are stuck is if we really accurately assess our challenges, our adversaries, they're stronger than we are right now. And so we have to take this moment and we have to learn. And it's not really a time to push forward a whole lot. It's a time to learn, to grieve, to reconcile with the pain that we are in, and to continue to assess our challenges and our adversaries, and to look for the openings, to look for a reconfiguration as we gather our own strength. And we gather our own strength again by going through the pain, not by ignoring it. And ultimately, we are, in fact, rewarded for efforts that, as we do the work we, as we do our work, as we meet our challenges, as we go through our processes, as we come together in numbers, we are rewarded that those efforts do pay off and the universe notices. So that's what I have.
Thank you. Thanks for tuning in, John, and whoever else hasn't necessarily popped up.
And we can always, this is going to be here.
It's going to be here
in perpetuity.
So I wonder how long it'll be kept. I wonder if it'll be like bounced on satellites
forever
after the
through the black
world
hole
goes to space,
the blue event horizon. All right. Kind of gives a whole new meaning to all the ships at sea.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's my line.
Yeah. So would you? So
okay.
I can hit the yeah.
Okay, I'll do it. Thanks for tuning in, and our love goes out to you and to all the ships at sea.
And God willing, and the creek don't rise. We'll be with you next week. Please do hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, hit all the stuff, like the video. Thanks.
Bye.